I talked about Samadhi and Samadhi as the ground of our being, calm and quiet mind, no mind, no self. I can reflect my day or two and share some ideas. I don't know which one to talk first, but just most recently I was out shopping and doing some errand paperwork, and they were not organized, so I have to go visit again. The bureaucracy, and here's an example of being equanimous, calm and quiet, as if the spring wind passed by. It wasn't like that. I reacted in a way. Why didn't they tell me beforehand? And I asked them, when is the next time? Where's the supervisor? Things like that. And it was the machine breakdown, they said, but they didn't inform me. So this and that. But nothing you can do, so I accept. And yet, to make sure next time they properly inform me and so forth. Who knows, it sounds like there's machine, the computer and communication there's not well established. But life is life. Move on. I did some shopping. Yesterday and today, I was thinking about the story of chaos. This is in Taoism, Chuang Tzu. And all the story, everything is connected to each other, so you may see me how things may be synthesized. So the story of the chaos is kind of interesting. And something else triggered me to think about that story. But anyway, the story is something like there's a guy whose name is Chaos, and something happened and people suggested, why don't you try this, and give him some instruction so that the guy can see well, smell well, think well, and all that, like a human being. And when they did, they say they're making holes to like eyes and ears and nose and mouth and so forth. After they did 7 of them, this chaos died. That's all the story. But the story points, instead of leaving the chaos alone, if you plug in what to do, like a human being, like adults or the parents telling what to do, this chaos is not chaos anymore. Get stiff and get confused what to do, how to synthesize the idea, and it's too much, so the chaos died. Maybe you can picture that the chaos represent animals or trees, that people may want to inject some new vaccine or so that the apple tree can be more to produce because of the profitability. But the nature may not be endure that. But the human being, being a human being, may push forward with that. For the human ego, you might think. But when I talk about that, use the brain, listen to your heart. The heart is like representing the law of nature. And if we lose that, we become artificial, without losing, without having a connection to the root, where the source of creativity prevails And that's the reason why we are here, living or brought on this planet. And right now, at least for now, I'm living, not because of the mind, but because of the law of nature manifesting in such a way. But if you poke around the system, that's the human nature, as in this case of, changing the DNA and so forth, playing with it, so that you can live long, be happy if you live long, or supposedly. But there's a gap created, and that's the concern of my point. Use the brain, but at the same time, listen to your heart and live with a mission. Bring out the wisdom and compassion so that it's like if it's a tree, have the tree structure prevailing in the direction as if it is connected to the nature's way. Maybe it's not easy. Maybe we poke around, we make mistakes. But if we learn from the mistakes, as much as we learn from the using the brain, we may bring out the wisdom or compassion. But this story of the chaos may point. You may kill the core of who you are and live in your artificial intelligence, you may call that, thinking that's the whole, without connecting to the source of who you are. Anyway, that's the story. So back to this assignment or the appointment didn't work out. It's like a nature's way in a way, but the human couldn't handle it. For me, accept it. But living in the society, we may want to bring out certain procedure, the wisdom. At the same time, when something goes wrong, we know how to deal with it properly. So that's the process of life. The other thing related to this chaos story, I was thinking about, maybe poking in my mind or into my heart, is the story of the circle without the center. That's the Zen saying. And I couldn't figure out who was saying that. So I was checking on the internet, I couldn't find out. Eventually, I asked ChatGPT, GPT, if he knows about it. And we had some conversation, dialogue as usual. And it turned out that he's got the right idea, or in my view, that the circle without the center point like this chaos story. So the dialogue is relating to, I don't know which maybe I talked about the circle first and then asked ChatGPT and about the chaos story. And I could relate to what he's talking about. So this sounds like a very nebulous story, but still there's some sense that AI, with its background database, we can communicate and come up with some understanding. And the understanding is, what would be the good summary? Chaos, the circle without the center, both point the nature of how everything manifests, representing the law of nature in natural way. Putting the center is the human act. Poking into the chaos is the human act. And the source, the law of nature, kind of reject that. So what happens? Back to that story about appointment, I couldn't communicate much further, so I left. And then there's the spring wind. It's not spring, but the summer wind, refreshing me that it's not difficult, but it's okay as it is. Samadhi, and then the wind, fresh wind, revitalized me instead of getting caught up in the thought and dwell on it. Maybe I didn't dwell on it a little bit. As a management consultant, I have this habit. Why it happened? How can it be done? How do you deal with it? How to assure things that doesn't happen? PDCA. Business is business, but my life and connection to myself is my business. So I was happy to feel the breeze passing by. So that's today's story. Yep. Yesterday, I also had this conversation with Hospice Nurse. Julie is her name, and I posted a few videos about the story. It was inspiring because I have the video before that talking about how to live and what do you do when you cannot do anything. Facing death is a moment when we cannot do anything. Julie has lived, she may be, I don't know, maybe 35 years old or something, has the interesting video platform. Whatever reason it popped up, thanks to Google. And she was talking about a few things. You might want to check my video. It's about how to deal with inevitables, like death was the title, I remember. And she faced that situation herself and the person who's dying and the friends and family who deal with that situation. So this is like a real case study. And my thinking was, and the questioning and popping up during the video, somehow connected to the source of information from Google and looked into it. Few stories you can look into the video because I may not remember the whole thing in this time frame. It's really the interesting story. One of the stories that when you die, your original nature, the way that you live as a habit, pops up. So if you have a very narcissistic person, it comes out in the last 1 day, 2 days before death. I think there's a story in Japan at least. As you get older, you become like a child behaving like that old habit prevailing and no control over it. So that's probably this example, not facing death, but similar to death, coming close to death, and we may bring out more of those strong character that we have developed over years. Because everything is falling off. What you remember is the core memory and habit. It could be a very sad story. If you are such a case like a narcissistic person, as Nurse Julie was talking about. But there was one story that she said was interesting, that she met the guy who is about to die. She knew he's going to die. And she was to leave. And when she was to leave in the car, there's some telepathy. And the telepathy was his voice talking to her, saying that, I'm dying, but this is such a relief. Why I had the fear or concern, I shouldn't have, but I'm happy being in the situation, or some such story. And that gave Julie a sense, no point to worry and be fearful about death by having such an interesting encounter. And that's also is the case that many people, I think the word is rally or something, toward the end of the life, last 2 days or so, they are weakening, but just before the death, they have this perking up of the energy to summarize. This is all I've got, and I'm ready. As if this biological nature of who we are is just spring out. Okay, here's a summary of 2 days of your life. Why don't you have 2 days to do that? As if some nature's way, nature's voice is telling. So anyway, I may not be representing the whole story like what Julie said, but I think I posted on the YouTube video about that story too. So inevitable, but you can go beyond facing death. And it's like awakening exactly like that. You cannot go anywhere, in my case. And I mentioned about Edgar Mitchell, Apollo moonwalker, coming back and see the sun and the moon and the earth, and epiphany and into Samadhi, that connecting to the root. So he had that sense. Instead of dying, right before dying, he had that awakening. In my case, I was 52 years old in Vipassana, 8th day, struggle, but then relief. Not waiting the last relief in your death. Maybe that's why they said death is the way for enlightenment, freedom. So if you can do it earlier, that just like the case of Saichi Miyokoni, my funeral is over. I don't know if I feel like it. To a degree I do, but maybe he is much more complete than me. But the event of my awakening was like that. I was tightening and then relief, liberation. Edgar Mitchell, similar, and the mind is empty. You see things much clearer, better, and there's no fear. Nothing you can do, but it's a relief. Then you know nothing you can do. I had this event, appointment issue, nothing I could do. Then spring breeze, or the summer breeze. It's just that event. Don't carry it, antagonize things of that nature. I think there was one more story prior to that, to get to those situations. Anyway, the point for this video is just a summary of the last few days and tying things together. When you read, like a Zen saying, center, the circle without center, or the story of this chaos, you can go deeper and get lost. But hopefully, I shared with you at least my way of looking at it. Chaos, fine. And the circle, fine. And there's a connection to the circle without the center or the chaos, as like our heart or the way of the universe manifesting that human brain cannot comprehend. But if you have a way to be, instead of caught up in the human brain, release can happen. Death is a relief, is what Julie said. But while you're alive, you don't have to carry the fear or concern. You may, but you can pass over, being the state of Samadhi, which you may say, like I said, is death of ego, and no mind. So I don't know if the train or untraining what we have accumulated, this logic and so forth of how to use the brain. But if you do too much emphasis on it and lose the connection to the heart, where you're from, how everything is functioning, in the world and within yourself, you have this gap. It's not aligned. So, chaos, circle without center, death, inspiration, don't wait to die your ego, Samadhi. That's one way to process those ideas. And then what? Not just a conceptual idea, understanding, but bring it into living life. That's the name of the game, not the intellectual masturbation. So be happy. I hope I'm not off the track, but I thought I should summarize a few points on this occasion. Thank you.